Welcome back, friends. If you're just joining us, let me catch you up. In episode 1, Niniola, a struggling Nigerian graphic design student in Seoul, found an expensive wallet belonging to Park Jae-sung, a mysterious and powerful Korean man. When she did the honest thing and returned it, she discovered it was all a test, a trap. Jae-sung offered her everything she'd ever dreamed of, a fully funded design career, but at a price. She now belongs to him, working on projects she can't question, bound by an agreement she can't escape. She took his phone in that dark library, and her life changed forever. But what happens next? Does she regret her choice? Or does this trap lead somewhere she never expected? If you haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button now because this episode will blow your mind. You don't want to miss how this story ends. Let's dive into part 2. Niniola was settling into the new apartment that Jae-sung had somehow secured for her when the encrypted phone buzzed with her first real assignment. A comprehensive brand identity for a high-end import business. Deadline 3 days. She worked through 2 consecutive sleepless nights, channeling every ounce of her creative skill into the project, crafting something elegant and commanding. When she uploaded the final files, the response arrived within 60 minutes. Satisfactory. Funds deposited. Meet me tomorrow at noon. Gangnam Finance Tower, 47th floor. That was all. No compliments, no elaboration. Just an instruction. Niniola arrived at Gangnam Finance Tower the following day, her portfolio case gripped anxiously in her hands. The structure was entirely glass and steel, imposing in its flawlessness. She rode the elevator to the 47th floor, her stomach lurching with each climbing number. The doors opened to reveal an expansive office space, minimalist and costly with floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing the entire Seoul skyline. A receptionist, refined and professional, barely acknowledged her before indicating toward a massive corner office. "Mr. Park is waiting for you." Niniola entered the office and discovered Jae-sung standing by the windows, his back toward her, hands tucked in his pockets. He wore a charcoal suit again, impeccably fitted, radiating that same controlled authority that both frightened and captivated her. "The work was impressive," he said without turning. "Superior to what I anticipated. You possess genuine talent, Niniola." "Thank you," she responded stiffly, uncertain how to behave around him in this environment. He turned then, his dark eyes evaluating her. "I have another assignment more intricate. A complete visual identity for one of my technology enterprises. It'll require you to collaborate closely with my staff to understand the business from within. Are you capable of managing that?" "I can manage anything you assign me," Niniola replied, raising her chin. Something shifted in his expression. Approval perhaps, or amusement. "Excellent. You'll begin Monday. My assistant will forward you the specifications." For the following 2 months, Niniola worked on the technology company assignment, spending extended hours at Jae-sung's headquarters, collaborating with his marketing division, presenting concepts in conference rooms filled with executives who initially regarded her with doubt until her work validated itself. She was exceptional, and everyone recognized it. Her designs were innovative, striking, perfectly embodying the brand's core. And throughout everything, Jae-sung observed. He'd materialize in meetings unannounced, positioned at the rear of the room, his eyes locked on her as she presented. He'd summon her to his office for critique sessions that always seemed more intimate than professional, his attention focused entirely on her in a way that made her heart race. He never touched her, never violated any clear boundaries, but the force of his presence was consuming. One evening, as most of the employees had departed, Niniola was still in the design studio Jae-sung had established for her use, perfecting mock-ups. She didn't register his entrance until his voice emerged from directly behind her. "You're consistently the last one remaining." She startled, spinning to find him standing close. Too close, his eyes on her computer display. "I want to deliver excellence," she said, her voice unsteady. "You consistently deliver excellence," Jae-sung said quietly. "That's not why you remain late. You stay because you're terrified of failure. Afraid to prove I erred in selecting you." The precision of his assessment stung. "Perhaps I am." "You shouldn't be." His hand rose, and for a terrifying, exhilarating instant, she thought he might touch her face, but he simply reached past her to indicate the screen. This color scheme. Revise it. It's too cautious. You're superior when you're daring. Their faces were mere inches apart. Niniola could detect his cologne, something costly and understated that made her dizzy. She forced herself to retreat, to create distance between them. "I'll modify it," she said, her voice constricted. He studied her for an extended moment, something unreadable in his expression, then nodded and departed without another word. The technology company assignment was an enormous success. When Niniola presented the final brand identity to Jae-sung's board of directors, she received a standing ovation. Afterward, Jae-sung summoned her to his office. "You surpassed every expectation," he said, and there was authentic warmth in his voice for the first time since she'd encountered him. "I'm proud of you." The words affected her more profoundly than any payment ever could. "Thank you. I have a proposal." Here it comes, Niniola thought. Another assignment, another snare. "I want you to leave the cafe permanently. Come work for me full-time as my creative director. Salary, comprehensive benefits, your own staff, everything you'd require to construct the career you've envisioned." Niniola's breath halted. This was everything she desired, presented to her completely formed. But it also meant binding herself to him entirely. No escape, no separation between his world and hers. "I need time to consider it," she said. "No, you don't." Jae-sung rose from his desk and approached to face her. "You've already reached your decision. You reached it the moment you accepted my phone in that library. You selected this path, Niniola. Now walk it with confidence." He was correct, and she resented him for it.
Fine.
"I accept, but I have conditions." His eyebrow elevated. "Speak." "I want creative authority. Final approval on all design decisions. No interference from you or anyone else in the organization." "Agreed. And I want my own office. Not some cubicle. An authentic office with windows and a door that secures." A smile touched his lips. "Agreed. Anything else?"
Yes.
"Stop observing me like that." "Like what?" "Like I'm something you possess." Jae-sung stepped closer, his voice descending to that dangerous low register. "I don't observe you like I possess you, Niniola. I observe you like I'm attempting very diligently not to do something we'll both regret." The admission suspended between them, electric and frightening. Then he retreated, the professional facade sliding back into position. "Welcome to the organization, Miss Adeyemi. Begin Monday." Niniola resigned from Café Muse the following day, departing the coffee shop for the final time with a combination of relief and nostalgia. She spent the weekend preparing for her new position, purchasing professional attire, organizing her portfolio, attempting to convince herself this was merely employment and not something far more complex. Her first day as creative director was overwhelming. Jae-sung's company was massive, and suddenly she supervised a team of 5 designers, occupied a substantial office with a view of the Han River, and managed projects that would have terrified her months prior. But she rose to the challenge, proving herself repeatedly, earning the respect of her staff and the executives who'd initially questioned her. And throughout everything, Jae-sung was present. Not hovering, not micromanaging, but there. He'd visit her office with coffee in the mornings, perfectly prepared the way she preferred it, though she'd never disclosed her taste. He'd invite her to lunch meetings that somehow always concluded being just the two of them, discussing everything except work. He'd remain late when she remained late, his office light visible from hers, a silent companionship that felt more intimate than any conversation. The staff noticed. Of course they noticed. Whispers began, speculation about the beautiful Nigerian woman with the stunning braids who'd somehow captured their notoriously reserved CEO's attention. Niniola heard the gossip and despised it, despised being reduced to office rumors, but she couldn't deny the truth at their foundation. Something was developing between her and Jae-sung, something neither had planned or could seem to regulate. 3 months into her new position, Niniola noticed something peculiar. The impossible assignments, the midnight crises, The tasks that pushed her to her boundaries, they'd ceased. Jae-sung was assigning her normal work, reasonable deadlines, requesting instead of commanding. His entire demeanor toward her had softened. One afternoon, she overheard two executives conversing in the break room. "Have you noticed the boss lately? He's different, less severe. He actually smiled in the budget meeting yesterday." Smiled. It's her. That creative director. He's been different since she arrived. I've never witnessed him like this with anyone. Niniola fled before they could see her, her heart pounding. That evening, she confronted him. She marched into his office without knocking, finding him at his desk reviewing contracts. "We need to talk." He looked up, no surprise on his face. He'd probably been anticipating this. "Close the door." She did, then turned to face him, arms crossed. "What are you doing? You'll need to be more specific."
This. Us.
"Whatever this is, you're treating me differently. Gentler. The staff has noticed." "I've noticed. What's your strategy, Jae-sung?" He set down his pen carefully, his complete attention on her now. "No strategy. I'm simply reassessing my approach." That's corporate language. "Give me honesty." "The honesty?" He stood, moving around the desk to lean against it, arms crossed to mirror her stance. "The honesty is that you've become more valuable to me than I projected. Not merely your abilities, though those are exceptional. You, the person you are. I find myself wanting to simplify things for you rather than complicate them. Wanting to witness you thrive rather than simply function. Is that specific enough?" Niniola's pulse accelerated. "You're developing feelings for me." "Yes." The simple confession stunned her. No denial, no deflection, just brutal honesty. "That's not possible. You don't do feelings. You do control and tests and business arrangements." "I didn't think I did either. Then you occurred." He took a step toward her. "You walked into my trap, Niniola, but somewhere along the way, I walked into yours. I can't stop thinking about you. Can't stop wanting to see you smile. Can't stop imagining what it would be like if this was genuine instead of a transaction." "This is insane," Niniola whispered. But her feet wouldn't move, wouldn't carry her away from him. "You manipulated me. You purchased me. You turned my life upside down." "I did. And I'd apologize, except I'm not sorry, because it brought you here to me." He closed the distance between them, his hand rising to trace the curve of her cheek. "Tell me you don't feel it too. Tell me I'm alone in this and I'll withdraw. I'll keep everything professional. But if there's even a possibility you feel something." "I hate you," Niniola interrupted, but her voice fractured on the words. "I hate that you trapped me. Hate that you manipulated me. Hate that you made me dependent on you." His thumb brushed across her lower lip and she trembled. "But I can't stop thinking about you either," she admitted, the words extracted from some deep, honest place she'd been attempting to ignore. "And I hate myself for it, because you're everything I should escape from. You're controlling and manipulative and you don't accept refusal. And yet you're also brilliant and protective and you see me in ways no one else ever has. You believed in my talent when I was just a struggling barista. You provided me opportunities one never would have discovered on my own. You're infuriating and impossible, and I'm falling for you, and I don't know how to stop." The confession suspended between them for one breathless moment. Then Jae-sung's control shattered. He pulled her to him, his mouth claiming hers in a kiss that was desperate and possessive and absolutely perfect. Niniola melted into him, her hands clutching his shirt, 7 months of tension finally finding release. When they separated, both breathing hard, Jae-sung rested his forehead against hers. "I'm not skilled at this. At feelings and relationships and vulnerability. I'll probably fail." "Probably," Niniola agreed, laughing through tears she hadn't realized were falling. "But I'm not skilled at it either. We'll discover it together." "Together," he repeated like the word was a revelation. "I appreciate the sound of that." Everything transformed after that night. They didn't hide their relationship, not exactly, but they kept it discreet, professional at work with stolen moments when they were alone. Jae-sung was surprisingly romantic in his own controlled way. He'd leave small gifts on her desk. Art books he thought she'd appreciate, imported chocolates, a vintage fountain pen because he'd noticed her sketching with cheap ballpoints. He'd text her during meetings to say something that made her laugh, then pretend nothing had happened when she looked up at him. He'd take her to quiet restaurants where they could converse for hours, learning each other's histories, dreams, fears. Niniola met his small circle of trusted friends, all of whom were shocked to witness their cold, controlled friend behaving like a man in love, because that's what he was. Park Jae-sung, the man who'd constructed elaborate traps and never let anyone close, had fallen completely and helplessly in love with the woman who'd returned his wallet. 6 months into their relationship, Jae-sung did something that surprised even him. He'd been planning it for weeks, working with a jeweler to create something perfect, something that captured everything he felt but could never quite articulate. It was an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. Niniola was in her office working on a campaign when Jae-sung's assistant called. "Mr. Park would like to see you in his office. He says it's urgent." Niniola's heart jumped. Urgent usually meant something had gone wrong. She hurried to his office, bursting through the door. "What's wrong? What happened?" She stopped short. Jae-sung's entire executive team was there. His assistant, his CFO, his head of operations, all of them standing around his desk with expressions ranging from curious to knowing. And Jae-sung was in the center of the room, holding a small velvet box. "Niniola," he said, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. "I'm not skilled with words. I'm better with actions, with plans, with strategies. So I'll keep this simple." He opened the box, revealing a stunning ring, a diamond set in a band that somehow incorporated traditional Korean design elements with African-inspired patterns, a perfect fusion of both their heritages. "I set a trap for you that night at the cafe. I was searching for someone trustworthy, someone I could utilize. But you became someone I couldn't exist without. You're my partner, my equal, my best friend. You're the person who makes me want to be better than I am. Marry me.
Choose me.
Not because you're trapped, but because you want to. Because we constructed something real from something false. And I want to keep constructing it for the rest of my life." The office was silent. Niniola stood frozen, tears streaming down her face, unable to speak. "That's a yes, correct?" Jae-sung asked, a hint of vulnerability breaking through his usual confidence. "Because if it's not, this is about to become very awkward for everyone here." Niniola laughed, a sound somewhere between a sob and pure joy. "You're proposing to me in your office in front of your entire executive team? I wanted witnesses, so you can't claim later that I didn't do this properly. You're impossible. Is that a yes?" "Yes." Niniola rushed forward, throwing her arms around his neck. "Yes, it's a yes, you controlling, manipulative, wonderful man. Yes, I'll marry you." The office erupted in applause. Jae-sung slipped the ring onto her finger, then kissed her deeply, not caring who was watching, claiming her in front of everyone who'd ever doubted what they had was real. When they separated, his assistant was crying, his CFO was grinning, and everyone was talking at once. "I can't believe you're getting married," someone said. "I can't believe he actually proposed," someone else added. "I can't believe she said yes to someone who trapped her with a wallet," a third voice laughed. Jae-sung looked at Niniola, his hand cupping her face, his thumb brushing away her tears. "Best trap I ever set. Best mistake I ever made," Niniola agreed, and kissed him again. The wedding planning was a whirlwind. Jae-sung, true to form, wanted to manage everything, but Niniola insisted on being involved in every decision. They compromised, as they'd learned to do, blending his precision with her creativity. The venue would be in Seoul, a beautiful garden space that could accommodate both their families and Jae-sung's business associates. The ceremony would blend Korean and Nigerian traditions, honoring both their backgrounds. But first, they needed Niniola's parents. Niniola hadn't seen her parents in over a year, since before she'd moved to Seoul for her design program. They'd been shocked when she called to tell them she was engaged, even more shocked when they searched Park Jae-sung online and discovered who he actually was. Her father, a university lecturer who valued education above all else, had been skeptical. Her mother, warm and emotional, had cried with joy. But both had agreed to come to Seoul for the wedding, to meet the man who'd captured their daughter's heart. The day they arrived, Niniola was a nervous wreck. Jae-sung had offered to accompany her to the airport, but she'd insisted on going alone, needing this first reunion to be private. She stood in the arrivals terminal, scanning the crowds, her hands twisting anxiously. Then she saw them. Her father, tall and distinguished in a traditional Nigerian agbada. Her mother beside him in a beautiful wrapper and blouse. Both of them looking overwhelmed by the massive Incheon airport, but searching the crowd with determined expressions. "Mama, Papa," Niniola called, waving frantically. Her mother saw her first. "Niniola." She rushed forward, wrapping her daughter in a tight embrace that smelled like home, like shea butter and her mother's perfume and everything familiar and safe. "Let me look at you." "Oh, you're so beautiful. And thin. Are you eating? Is he feeding you?" "Mama, I'm fine. I'm happy. I'm so happy you're here." Her father joined them, pulling her into his arms. "My daughter. Look at you. All grown up and getting married. I still can't believe it." "Believe it, Papa. I found someone amazing. You're going to love him." "We'll see about that," her father said with mock sternness. "Any man who wants to marry my daughter has to pass my test first." Niniola laughed, thinking about tests and traps and how far she'd come from that night at Café Muse. "Trust me, Papa. He's very skilled at passing tests." That evening, Jae-sung came to Niniola's apartment to meet her parents. He arrived exactly on time, carrying flowers for her mother and a rare edition book on post-colonial literature for her father, having somehow discovered what her father taught. He was nervous, Niniola could tell, though he hid it well behind his usual composed exterior. But she saw the way his hand trembled slightly when he shook her father's hand, the way he stood a little straighter when addressing her mother. Her parents were formal at first, protective of their daughter, skeptical of this powerful Korean man who'd somehow swept her into his world. But Jae-sung was patient and respectful, answering their questions honestly, explaining how they'd met, deliberately omitting the wallet trap, but being truthful about everything else. He talked about Niniola's talent, her strength, the way she'd transformed his company and his life. He spoke in English for their benefit, his accent more pronounced, but his sincerity unmistakable. By the end of the evening, her mother was won over, charmed by his attentiveness and the clear devotion in his eyes when he looked at Niniola. Her father took longer, pulling Jae-sung aside for a private conversation that made Niniola anxious until both men emerged smiling. "He'll do," her father announced. "He's not what I expected for you, but he loves you properly. That's what matters." "What did you say to him?" Niniola asked Jae-sung later, after her parents had gone to their hotel. "The truth. That I didn't deserve you, but I'd spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of you. That I'd protect you and honor you and never take you for granted. That he raised an extraordinary woman, and I was the luckiest man alive that she'd chosen me." Niniola's eyes filled with tears. "You really said all that?" "Every word." He pulled her close, kissing her forehead. "I meant it, Niniola. All of it. The wedding was beautiful. They married on a perfect spring day, cherry blossoms falling like snow, the garden filled with people from both their worlds." Niniola wore a dress that incorporated both Western and Korean elements, her braids styled in an elegant updo adorned with traditional ornaments. Jae-sung wore a perfectly tailored suit with subtle Korean details in the embroidery. When they exchanged vows, Niniola's voice was strong and clear. "I didn't expect you. Didn't expect to fall in love with someone who started as a trap. But you became my partner, my protector, my home. You see me completely, and love me anyway. I choose you today and always." Jae-sung's voice was rougher, emotion breaking through his usual control. "You returned something I lost, and in the process you found something I didn't know I was missing. My heart, my future, my reason to be better. I was empty before you, Niniola. You filled every space I didn't know was hollow. I am yours completely and forever." When they kissed, sealing their marriage, the applause was thunderous. Her parents cried, his executives cheered, and Niniola and Jae-sung held each other, knowing that what had started as a test had become the truest thing in both their lives. At the reception, as they danced their first dance as husband and wife, Jae-sung whispered in her ear, "Do you regret it? Calling me that night?" Niniola looked up at him, at the man who'd trapped her and freed her and loved her beyond anything she'd imagined possible. "Not for a second." "Good. Because you're stuck with me now. I can think of worse traps to be caught in." Jae-sung laughed, the sound warm and genuine, and pulled her closer. And as they swayed together under the lights, surrounded by everyone they loved, Niniola thought about that night at the cafe, about finding a wallet that had seemed like a simple lost item but had actually been the key to her entire future. Some traps, she'd learned, were blessings in disguise. Some tests revealed not just character, but destiny. And sometimes the scariest choice led to the most beautiful life. She returned a wallet and found love. She'd walked into a trap and discovered freedom. She'd said yes to a proposal and gained everything. And as Jae-sung kissed her again, dipping her dramatically while their guests cheered, Niniola knew with absolute certainty that she'd make the same choice 1,000 times over. Because this impossible love built from manipulation and transformed into something real, this was worth every risk. This was worth everything. Thank you for watching the final episode of Niniola and Jae-sung's story. From a lost wallet to a wedding that brought two worlds together, this story shows us that love finds us in the most unexpected ways. If you enjoyed this story, please leave a comment and let me know what you thought. Subscribe to my channel for more stories like this. Hit that like button and share this with someone who believes in unexpected love. Tell me where you're watching from and how you'd rate this complete story from 0 to 10. I can't wait to see you in the next one.